While confidence in the market remains high overall, recent events have started to erode some of that confidence. Stay tuned. All right. Welcome, everyone. Last week, we highlighted the employee-sponsored healthcare is the only line item where purchasers spend millions of dollars per day and do not judge their performance on how well their purchases performed. And we talked last week about demanding a value agenda. Well, we're going to get into more value today because this week we're sharing a construction industry overview. Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the show. I'm John Clay, your chief strategist and host. Everything is good here. I hope all is well with you. Quick shout out to our sponsor. Check it out at www.bettersourcebenefits.com. Benefits Options Solutions. So stocks have had their weakest showing since the 70s. While inflation is high, consumer spending is starting to grow. It's been on a high since they've given us all this free money, right? But it's growing again. And we're still having supply chain issues. Logistics are cramping a lot of style. And the Federal Reserve, for its part, has aggressively started raising interest rates. Yay. No. But they're bringing prices back down, and that's some of the policy shift that we've seen as we watch regulators generate economic indicators from these policies. We'll focus on the next quarter very closely for the signs of a recession on the horizon. Hopefully there won't be one, but it can happen. So we're going to talk about and discuss several key aspects that are impacting the construction industry in 2022. And just the bullet points here, they are national indicators. We're going to talk about the unemployment rate and the GDP, labor trends, the construction employment situation, and volume and activity, because the U.S. Construction Index is our best measurement of where we are and where we think things are going. So let's talk about unemployment. The unemployment rate as of May was 3.6%. And what you saw in response to that was tightening monetary policy, which, is trying to slow down consumer spending. Sorry, I'm tongue-tied today. It must have been a good lunch. But, those slower consumer spending issues are textbook harbingers of a recession. So the forecasters are predicting that unemployment will rise to just under 5% by 2025. It's already at 3.1%. So we're going to see that thing tick on up. Unemployment, even so, the economy continues to grow and add jobs. Well, let's put it this way. They're posting jobs. Adding jobs is a different matter. We're interviewing 20 to get one in some cases, right? So about 372,000 jobs are added in June, roughly on par with recent months. But the good news is that this represents the strongest 12 months of the payroll growth on record. So you're starting to see us come out of the pandemic and into back to the USA that we all know and love. And the gains are reflective of the monthly average before the pandemic. So, those are still strong numbers. What does that mean to construction companies? High competition in the job market. It's a jungle out there, folks, and who knows it better than the construction folks, because we're all challenged with these following uh, highlights that we're going to share today. But before we get into the employment situation, let's talk about the gross domestic product. The general measurements in the GDP are indications that, of the health of our economy. The economy has shrunk in 2020 3.4%. And then it turned around and grew by 5.7% in 2021. Both figures are unusual. And in contrast, as they forecast forward, we're expecting the GDP to grow by 1.1% in 2023 and 2.1% in 2024. So we're seeing a kind of a wild ride on the GDP. So we've got the strong employment growth in 2022, but we still have the prolonged inflation. We were at 8.5, then it spiked at 9.1. It's easing back a little bit thanks to jacked up interest rates. The Federal Reserve is jacked up interest rates, and it looks like they're going to raise them again. So this is, all in all, it's a pretty remarkable turnaround in policy. Can anyone say election year? I mean, hello. So we have the signs. We've got high inflation and a slowing consumer spending. And, again, these are traditional harbingers of a recession, but the Fed is taking a more aggressive approach to rein in the inflation here. And they're doing that to try to keep it from erasing the people's savings and tanking the economy. So, as long as it's been around, raising interest rates has increased the cost of borrowing. No big shock there, but it creates a slower expansion of business growth. And that's hurtful, but it is what it is. You got to squeeze the economy to get the interest rates down there. And once those interest rates come down, then the borrowing gets easier. And here we go. We're ready to go borrow money and go expand our business. So the idea here is that the growth will make recessions shorter and less severe. Back to the 70s, if you'll recall that, many of us do, I do, but many of the younger people watching today will not, that the Feds had a difficult job of it. They made some real blunders back in the 70s. And they came away with a term that we called stagflation. So stagnant economy with high inflation, they combined those two words into stagflation. Ooh, we don't want that again. So that's why you've seen the swift response from the Fed in recent months. So let's talk about construction labor trends. Going on a generation now, the construction labor market has had a challenge finding enough skilled workers. Why? It's very simple. We're short of skilled workers. Everybody's getting older. The people who can do the work, who are willing to do the work, that show up and give you 8 hours a day, every day, 30 minutes before their shift starts, are getting older, and those are a challenge to find those type of workers. So we're seeing a competitive labor market for the skilled workers and not enough skilled workers in the younger ages to backfill that void. In the second half of 2022, we're going to still see that. And, with the combination of an aging workforce and inflation, the challenge is going to be for employers. It's going to drive up wages, and it's going to drive up demand for better benefits. And overall, it's going to result in a higher price of building anything in these United States of America. So that's my forecast on the labor trend. It's pretty cut and dried because, that's what's going on. And then you add to it the federal infrastructure bill, It's added to the problem with $550 billion of spending that's been approved, and it's driving the needs for an estimated 3.2 million new workers. Where are we going to get those folks? So there's 500,000 job openings right now. The April Bureau of Labor Statistics showed those higher than the previous 438,000 of April in 2019. So we're not going to be able to fix this labor shortage with our rapidly aging workforce. So we're going to have to rely on something to make this happen. And we're just going to have to find somebody to go to work. The St. Louis Fed, I'm going to check my note here. The St. Louis Fed shows wages overall have struggled to keep up with inflation. No shock there. So the modest gains over the last years would not have increased spending power as much as workers would have liked. So even though they're getting more, the tight labor market's driving higher wages, but inflation is robbing them. So that's a pain point, if you will. And medical plans, here's the shameless plug. The medical plans, using a value agenda, can help create attraction for the jobs in your shop. The shameless plug here for www.bettersourcebenefits.com, and click Get Started to meet with me and help with easing these issues. Volume and activity. Let's talk about the Architectural Billings Index. The American Institute of Architects has an index that they generate each year, actually monthly. And this monthly index actually runs from 0 to 100. And right now is sitting about 52 or 53 out of 100. It hasn't gone up or down wildly, but it's forecast the construction market conditions over the next 6 to 9 months. And this ABI has slowly begun to decline, although the overall value still predicts growth because it's above the 50 mark. Northeast is going to contract just a little bit, but the strong growth remains out in the West. The region's still in need of new residential developments. And the South and the Midwest are expected to see modest growth down from previous months because you're seeing a huge migration, if you will, from out west back to the Mideast and South due to the fiscal policies you have out in California. My goodness, people are leaving California all over the place. So the regional index, 3 market sectors: industrial, commercial, institutional, and residential. And those have been declining a bit in April, but total construction is going to see modest growth in the first part of the new year. And that's what we're seeing because, again, we've got the $550 billion that are ready to go. And we'll just have to go to the bid lettings and see what happens with those. The overall market on the volume trends for construction expected to be 0.1% larger by the end of the year. But here's the big mover. The big mover in this whole experience is going to be manufacturing, because guess what's happening? They're leading with the growth this year, and here are the 2 reasons why. They're contending with supply chain disruption. And with that supply chain disruption, the producers are moving operations back to the U.S. And those moves are making the supply lines a whole lot shorter when you don't have to ship it across the pond. So again, residential construction continues with a strong demand for housing. And just a footnote here that by April, there were 1.6 million units in the pipeline. And the number of units that have been greenlit but not begun is also high. So non-residential construction declined in 2021, no shock there. but it's rallied in the first half of 2022. This is due to that strong manufacturing sector we just mentioned. But the other key indicator that we have here is offices. These downtown offices are largely remaining unoccupied across the country. This is hurting that growth in that commercial sector because you got to have these sales offices to drive the orders back to the manufacturing plants and so forth and so on. So you got to have the yin along with the yang, and to have a strong economy, you need to have both. So let's hope that we'll see people returning to these offices and get back to full employment and full productivity in that traditional sense. We both know, and we've talked about it on the show before, that, hey, not everybody's going to work on site. It may still have a large sector of remote workers, but office supply and demand in those settings will have to be mitigated some kind of way. So there you have it, folks. We've just talked about three big indicators, national indicators: the unemployment rate from 3.6 to 5% by 2025, the GDP from 1.1 to 2.1% by 2024, labor trends with construction employment. We're short of help, but everyone's getting older in that business, and a $5.5 billion project spend going out for bids with nobody to work them. And then finally, volume and activity with that U.S. construction index. And I'm going to just say steady as she goes, with a return to domestic production here in the States, which bodes well for our country. So positive stuff. We just need to find some workers. And we've got the infrastructure bill is going to help create opportunities for all of us, from the least of us all the way to the big outfits. And I'll just leave you with one pro tip here. With the worker shortage and pressure to offer better wages and benefits, the most strategic lever a company can pull is to implement a value agenda in employee benefits. To imagine what's possible for your business, I invite you to our website at www.bettersourcebenefits.com and click the Get Started link to book a brief web meeting with me, John Clay, your host and chief strategy guide. So that's it for today. I hope this has been informative and gives you some confidence in the forecast for construction in 2022 and beyond. Join us next week, same time, 2 p.m. Eastern, on Benefits with John Clay. I hope this week and holiday gives you a chance to reflect on your labor in this world and enjoy a happy Labor Day. So long, everybody.